Welcome, everybody. My name is Steve Hoffa. Thank you for watching this show. Work, then versus now, whether you're just starting off or about ready to retire. Carl Edwards, Bill and Will Small. I respect them so much. I hope you do the same. This is the Standing Still Podcast. 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 Thank you for tuning in. My name is Steve Hoffa. Welcome to the Standing Still Podcast. We're super glad that you're here. Super stoked that you're watching on YouTube or listening at one of the podcast outlets. Thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate it. So on today's show, I've really been wanting to do this for quite a while. I've got three guys here. One guy's here just to kind of facilitate my own personal needs. His name is Will Small. He's back on the show. Will Small, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me on again. I think this is number 4.
Yeah, you've been on quite a bit. Definitely one of my better friends. Two guys that I've been trying to get on since I started this thing about a year and a half ago. Two guys that I want to get on for one reason. Both guys I really respect highly on certain days.
Pretty sure that's me.
Okay, so you don't have to keep staring at the camera, Carl. You can. I'm right here. Okay, I'm up here, Carl. Yeah. You don't have to keep staring at the camera.
Look at my eyes,
dude. So okay, both guys I really, really respect, and then they both kind of have some similarities and some differences. The similarities being they both worked in construction pretty much their entire lives, knocking on retirement's door. Not tomorrow, but it's coming up for sure soon. We'll get into that. So I wanted to talk about, because I have those two guys on here that have that kind of mentality, the mentality that I respect and the kind of mentality of, I think, yesteryear a little bit. And then I have Will on here to, like I said, for good times, and then also to kind of balance out, and we can kind of talk about then versus now. So first person to my left, you love him. I'm sure there's a list of people that hate him. Carl Edwards, dude, welcome to the show, home.
Thank
Big
you.
dog. Like I said,
I don't know anybody that doesn't like me.
There's a lot of people that I don't know that hate me. That's for sure.
All right, good.
Next guy, middle in the man sandwich I got across the table here. Like I said, almost like a second dad to me in a bit. Really good family. Helped me out a lot. Love the guy. Bill Small, Will Small's dad. What's up, Bill? How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I know. We've been trying to make this happen.
Yep, finally.
Long time. So, okay, start the show off. I want to talk about, this is going to be a lot of kind of work picture and careers and things like that, because I think it's changed drastically. I kind of been saving this topic a lot for you guys because I really wanted your insight. Carl, you said some stuff. I grew up next to Carl. My parents lived next to him growing up. So I've heard some things that have really stuck with me and kind of ingrained me to be the man that I am today.
Like, stay off my lawn?
Stay off my lawn.
Pretty sure it's I'm not a role model.
Not a role model. Hookers, you pay them to leave. That one was a constant.
Don't do this.
They're very cheap. You don't marry them. You don't buy them cars. You don't buy them houses.
Your argument is they're very cheap.
Right.
Yeah, cheaper to keep her.
Yeah.
One thing that I do that definitely did stick with me, I've never heard anybody else say it. I don't know if it's a common thing, but I've said it multiple times at work to different people that I worked with and for, is that the lazy person works twice as hard. So I've always really respected that mentality that you've had. And I think as you guys will listen and watch, he's definitely lived his life like that in some senses. But no, I'm just kidding, dude. So, okay, first topic, starting a career. Then versus now. Back then, if you didn't go to college, it wasn't really that big of a deal, right? It wasn't, because for me, I went to college for a couple years, and then I stopped and got into the job I have now. It's it's a building block apprenticeship. It's a good trade, right? I'm an electrician. But when you would tell people, family, friends, and stuff like that, they would ask you, because I was like 21. I just turned 21 when I started this, right? So I wasn't going to school anymore. And they would ask, like, oh, you going to school? Like, that was the automatic. Like, oh, what school are you going to? You going to school? You going to college? I'm like, nah, I'm just working full time. And the tone, the demeanor, the shoulders would droop, and they would look at you like, oh, my gosh. Like, you're just going to work at McDonald's for the rest? You know what I mean? It was such a like, oh, geez. You know what I mean? Anybody that, and these were all people that didn't have anybody that was in the trades or anything like that. So with you guys, first of all, tell me a little bit. Give me a little bit about yourselves. How did you, Carl? We'll start with you. Kind of how you got started. Well, what do you do? What was the? We'll talk about what was the majority of your career. Well, okay. First of all, Carl, how old are you?
Do I have to answer that?
You have to answer, and I want it honestly.
53.
53. Okay.
Right.
And Bill, you're
Younger than Carl.
50.
I'm 52.
52. So 52, 53. And Will and I are very close in age. We're both 25, but I've got a very substantial, is it 10 days,
10
right?
days,
10
yeah.
days. I rub that in every year.
Wisdom.
So, okay. Carl, how'd you get started? Because I know you worked for the same company pretty much the majority of your life.
Yeah, I basically was always an outdoors guy. Didn't play video games. We didn't have video games.
Right.
Pong, Atari, But always, college was never there. My parents, they weren't poor, but we weren't wealthy, and so like I had to buy all my own cars, bikes, motorcycles, and so I, worked my ass off and just started buying toys, and I got a good job, and I basically stayed there for 32 straight years.
Right.
So, and then now I just keep going to work every day like everybody else.
Okay, right on. What about you? But you had some family? You kind of follow a little bit of the family thing. I know that.
Yeah, I'm second generation fire sprinkler fitter, local 709.
Okay.
My dad went through the apprenticeship, and then my parents, it was just different when I was with my age group. They didn't really push you anything. They just kind of let you do it and see where you ended up. So I decided to go to college for a year, so I went to Fullerton College for a year and found out that I didn't really like it. And,
Right.
And then I went down. It's funny the story now, but I actually just went down and signed up to get into the union for testing just to make my dad happy because he was bitching at me all the time. And I ended up getting in. And then here I am, 32 years later? Actually 34 years later. So it worked out well.
Right. Okay. Will, just for fun, what do you do currently as a 25-year-old man?
I work. I distribute alcohol. I sell it. So I'm in inside sales. I call on accounts and try and just get a profit versus what we're going up against last year.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Sales.
And then I started. I went to college for a little bit. We actually had this conversation with my coworkers today, and they were like, "Wait, you don't have a bachelor's?" And like everyone in my industry has one. So now, I mean, I'll go back eventually, but yeah, it's one of those things.
Don't get me started on that.
Totally. Okay. So we got 3 guys in the trade, 2 different generations. And another thing is that Carl and Bill are one of the very few people that I know that are still my whole life pretty much, and Bill still definitely for sure. You guys were the only source of income inside your house, right? It was the classic. You worked your ass off. You got a job. You started. You stuck with it. You rose through the ranks, and your wife took care of the house. You know what I mean? She took care of the kids, took care of the house. That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
Right. Why do you think that is? Is it just strictly because of cost? Is it because there's you know what I mean?
Lots of reasons. I mean, obviously we paid probably way less than what houses are worth now.
Right.
My first house was $182,000.
Right.
Same one I live in now.
Right.
So buying that same house tomorrow is $600,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, could I afford to go buy it tomorrow? No. But back then, my wife worked back then.
Mm-hmm.
It took years for us to get to where she didn't have to work.
Right.
And we weren't having a ton of money, and I worked a lot of overtime and every hour I can get. And fortunately, I was pretty good at what I did, and got a little money, extra money over scale truck and things like that. So it was a little easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still really, really hard work, and like I say, it's basically I came from a place where it was a little easier,
So what was okay? So you start your career. I think I made that point. One of the bigger points I definitely want to make on this show is that, or on this particular episode, is the workers and the employees themselves. Especially because you guys have definitely seen the hiring side and the management side obviously we're talking about construction, which is kind of not a niche, but it's a very, I guess, a niche. It's way different than a lot of different businesses, right? It's still kind of, there's still cowboys out there doing construction, you know what I mean? Where it's like, just get it done, you know what I mean? Which is kind of, right. Carl, you're making that face looking like I'm an idiot.
No.
I know it very well. I've seen it for 20-something years.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, so how, I mean, you always think hindsight's 20/20, but from where you guys were going in and all your buddies, and not even totally just into the trades of like, well, you know, we've kind of already talked about how doing something else besides college right away wasn't so frowned upon back then, but also I think it was a different attitude of like, oh, I'm going to go start a career. It was totally different back then versus now. You know what I mean? Now it's, if you don't have everything worked out by 25 or everything, you know what I mean? There's kind of a regimented timeline of, you know, you really got to have your career worked out, and this is what you're going to choose for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? So how can you guys think of anything that was drastically different back then versus now?
Backing up, education is, regardless if you go to college or you go through an apprenticeship program or you work in the field, you got to have education, period. It doesn't matter what it is, which way you go.
Right.
Some guys have to do it learning in the field. Some guys can go to school and do it. You know, I, for one, couldn't do it. I tried it. It wasn't my thing. I think Carl said the same thing. I don't think one's better than the other. It's just you as a person got to figure out which path you want to take, you know?
Right.
And what I think is different now that I'm seeing with the younger guys, well, like, I can't speak for Carl, but it was just the way you were brought up. You know, you knew that you had a plan. You just went boom, 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 and then followed it. Now I see with the younger guys, you know, they want to go out and do things and try all these different things and
start a podcast.
Start a podcast.
Yeah.
But experience things.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
They want to experience things first, and then they think, okay, now I've experienced everything. Now I want to go and settle down, and I'm going to drop right into this. And the problem they're having is you can't just drop right into it. You know,
Right.
I do interviews for apprentices every year, and I get guys that are like, well, I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing, and I look down and they're 37.
Right.
I'm like, well, where the hell you been for 12, 15 years, you know?
Right.
But that's the change I noticed in people. You know, you want to live for the experience now, and then we'll deal with the other stuff later. Whereas I think, you know, when Carl and I, it was the other way around. You were taught you provide for your family, get that all dialed in, and then you go from there. So
Right.
I think that's a twist.
I graduated midterm my senior year of high school.
Because you're so smart, right?
I graduated with honors, which I know you're going to find that hard to
That was a
believe.
great answer, Carl.
I did too. They were throwing honors around a lot.
Yeah, I mean, let's say I was the smartest guy in class, but I figured it out. But, you know, like I turned out as a journeyman at 23 years old.
Right.
You know, and I had a company truck at 23 years old, and I mean, I busted my ass. But you got to understand that, like, even like now, what does a journeyman fire sprinkler guy make right now to go to school for 5 years?
I'd have to look, but you're in the 40s.
Yeah, and same thing, even with like sheet metal workers and all those guys. And it's a full package. You
Right.
get medical, dental, vision, everything, retirement.
Right.
It's amazing. It's about a $60, $70 package on paper.
Right.
By the time you're paying for all that stuff, they don't pay any health care. It's all covered through the union. So I mean, to come out of school at 18, 19, get straight into apprenticeship, 5 years later you're making $40-some an hour.
Right.
With every Saturday you work, you get complete overtime.
Right.
Time and a half on Saturdays. Sundays is all double time.
Right.
Whether you work one day during the week or not.
Right.
So it's big money. You're going to go to school. You're going to spend a lot of money in school. You're going to come out. You're going to have a lot of school debt. It's going to take you years to catch up.
Right.
I mean, now everybody wants that degree. And it depends how hard you want to work for a living.
Right.
You know what I mean?
My thoughts have always been, go to college if you have that plan, Bill. It's like, I'm going to get this degree to do this. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that go to college because you're supposed to go to college. That's the kind of tone I've got. Like I said, I got a lot of dirty looks and a lot of like, oh, you're not going to school. And to be honest with you, 99% of those parents and family friends, now that I'll be a journeyman pretty soon and everything like that, their kids are $50,000 in the hole, and they're making $12 an hour. You know what I mean? And they can't find a job in that field. And so a lot of them don't even like that job.
But yeah, and
I'm patting myself on the back, Bill.
Yeah, you
Let
are.
me pat it, okay?
Yeah, you're gonna break your arm, by the way. But but that worked for you. That doesn't mean that worked for somebody else.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that are smart people, but they aren't mechanically inclined. You know, and there's a lot of mechanically inclined people that are smart, but they just can't do the book work. So
Right.
you got to find your niche. I mean, there's no set avenue to go. You know, it's whatever you want to call it, hard knocks or learning curve, or pick one. You know,
Right.
A lot of people, they don't know how to sell themselves either. So, I mean, they could be the smartest guy in the room, and they're doing most of the work for somebody else who's taking all the credit. You know what I mean? You'll see that where you'll see where people are being abused and used for, you know, the higher ups get all the right answers from everybody that's doing all the works, and then they throw that was their idea. You know, it's like you look at teachers. You know, they go to school for all those years, and they do amazing work for all these kids, and they're very underpaid.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And by the time they pay their school debt and all that other stuff, it's just a bum deal.
Yeah. It's
You know?
definitely fueled by passion, I would say.
Right. And like I say, but, you know, if most teachers are, you know, especially females, you know, obviously don't want to go out and work in the construction field.
Right.
You know, and it's getting more common to get project managers and things like that, females,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because the construction world, there's a lot of money out there.
Totally.
And, you know, it's got to be your passion. And it's not for everybody.
Right.
You know, it's dirty. It's not clean all the time. There's a lot of fuck, shit, piss. I mean, you hear a lot of stuff you probably shouldn't hear. I mean,
right?
Yeah, I know.
most construction workers don't have the.
Shit, just even driving to work is stressful now. You know, you got
Yeah.
to get up 3 hours earlier to get there.
Yep. You're up at the crack of dawn, and then it's not like you're going to go to bed at 7:30 to get your 8 hours. You still end up staying up till 9:30, 10, 11.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think I've gotten 5 hours of sleep this whole week because I've been studying for this journeyman test that I'm doing. Patting myself on the back, Bill. That's going to be the name of this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But so let me ask you.
Somebody's gonna pat it.
No, so okay.
Does anybody think it's weird though? We're in here doing this in the bathroom with 4 guys with microphones. I mean, I get the acoustics thing, but this is kind of creepy.
I got a big
whatever.
bathtub. I wanted to know
whatever.
what I was going to do with it.
Whatever.
So okay. We'll get you in on this.
Oh, Will's still here?
Yeah.
Shut up, Will.
Making all this noise over here.
Yeah, right. Open up beer cans. But so okay. We've kind of understood, you know, the attitude and the mentality of kind of how you guys came into it. And we talked a little bit about the shortcomings of kind of maybe my generation and how they're going into a career and everything like that. What do you think this new generation, what do you think where it's like they really have something to offer that your generation doesn't coming in? You know what I mean? Like, what do we thrive on? You know, obviously there's a lot of similarities where it's like it doesn't matter what decade it is. Like, you have to work hard to get somewhere. You know what I mean? There's stuff like that that's going to be timeless for sure. You guys are thinking really hard, I could tell, and you guys are coming up with a lot of empty ansers like, well,
No,
I don't know.
I got answers. You're probably going to like them.
I mean, technology. I mean, honestly, like,
yeah.
I was thinking that.
you know, being out in the field and the computer world, it never paid the bills.
Right.
And now everything, you know, that the world works now in the construction world, it's all going to computers.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, from, you know, the days back when you'd wear a safety belt was basically a belt with a rope tied to it, to now it's a full harness with lanyards and all kinds of crazy stuff. And you got to have engineered plans. And
Mm-hmm.
the world's gotten safer through technology, but it's also gotten slower through technology in certain ways.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The simple thing of, you know, going up 10 feet on a ladder and swapping out a head sprinkler pipe. Well, what's your safety plan? You know, how are you going to do this? I mean, how are you going to be safe? I think you should use a lift. Is it safe? Well, it's safe for that guy who does it every day.
Right.
But in the same sentence as, you know, it could be one day where he has a bad day and falls and gets hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now they're trying to prevent all that. But like the whole technology of coming in with these computers, I have a tough time struggling with all the computers because I work in the office as well as in the field. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, some of these things that they get around now, it's like, okay, you know, where do you put all this?
Right. Right.
But-
Yeah. iPads pretty much they're everywhere in the field. You see
Yeah.
guys all the time walking around with iPads because you can zoom in on the plans and blah 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 blah. You can walk around with it.
Before you carried these big ass prints,
Right.
you had all kinds of them.
Yeah,
You
well,
don't
now
want to spill anything on it, and you're sitting there squaring it, like trying to read the little tiny print.
We didn't fax anything. We went to a pay phone to call or a house phone.
Right.
We were really cool. We got pagers.
Yeah.
Those were really cool.
I dream of the day of living through the pager
Right.
era, let me tell you.
Nobody cared where we were. I didn't have to check in anywhere.
Right.
Right.
Nowadays, and I'm curious if this is different from you, because there's a lot of different safety personnel where their whole job is just to walk around and look for stuff that's unsafe. I think that's been going around for a long time. It's always been safety people, but like you said, it's stricter and more stringent now more than ever. How frustrating is it that there's guys, let's say you're on a ladder and you're above 6 feet, and above 6 feet you're supposed to be tied off or something like that, you know, whatever the job is. They don't say anything, they just take a picture, and then the next day you're getting chewed out because they emailed a picture of you on a ladder 7 steps up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of the world. There is no like, hey man, I really care about you, can you please step down? It's just, I'm doing my job, here's a picture, and I'll email it through the system.
No, they're justifying their job is all they're doing.
Right.
See something, say something.
Yeah.
That's the motto they say
Right.
on the job sites. If you see somebody doing something unsafe, say something.
Mhm.
You know, because you're just as responsible as the guy making that mistake.
Yeah. I mean, and looking at the bigger picture, everything's insurance driven.
Right.
I mean, if you start having accidents on the job, then we'll call it insurance rating for the sake of argument, goes up, and then you have to pay that premium. So now you're competing against somebody. Your premiums are higher. Somebody's got to pay for that cost. So
Right.
that's what it's all about.
And you can't even bid on jobs if you get too high.
Right.
Yes.
And that's all it is.
It's you can't work in certain areas if you don't have a percentage rating of low enough percentage rating of injuries. You know,
Yeah.
Right, right.
and
Isn't it crazy? I'm sure you guys have heard of this because you guys are way smarter. Carl, honors, graduating a semester early.
I did too, by the way.
Yeah.
I did have honors, I'm sure.
We'll sweep that under the rug, Bill.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
no problem.
whatever. Apparently
he went to La Habra though. Like, come on, how tough was that?
Yeah.
You speak
Hey,
English?
I
Okay, you're good.
Here you go.
Honors.
Here's your diploma.
Hey, I colored inside the lines. Come on.
So, okay. The question is, what has the definition of success changed? Let me ask you guys that. Because before, I feel like, obviously, sorry for cutting you off, Carl.
No, I'm just smiling. Keep going.
Before, I feel like it was definitely you grow up, you buy the house, you have the nice new car in the driveway. You know what I mean? It was the American dream. Do you think that's changing?
You know what? You're asking probably the wrong guy.
Why would you say that, Carl?
Um,
Explain to the world, because the whole entire world is
No,
listening
and-
right now.
No, to be straight up is, it depends what you think success is
Right.
and how driven you are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like I mean, with me, I wanted every toy in the world and everything I could. Just because you have things and you're living in houses doesn't mean you're any better than the person who's homeless. You know,
Right.
that person chooses to be there. They might be happy living on the street, you know, because they're roofless, is what they call them.
Hmm.
You know, success is it's a driven thing. You know, you could be successful. You know, you pay your bills every day. You work at McDonald's making $10 an hour. You're happy, stress free. You have a nice dog and a cat, and you like to cuddle up and read a book. Whatever. That just because you have more money doesn't mean you're more successful.
Hmm.
Okay, it means you have more money.
Right.
But I mean, is that person stressed out from work? Is that person, does he sleep 10 hours a day? Is his mind racing all the time? Does he, drink through his feelings? When they're done that,
so
it's you can't measure success by money.
So you're thinking, okay, so your baseline, your foundation, for pretty much everything that I've heard so far is totally based on how driven you are.
Yep.
How motivated are you? How driven? Because that's 100%. That's where everything starts.
Yeah.
That's the root of it.
You're paying your bills, right?
Yeah.
So am I to say you're not successful?
Depends on what criteria you're talking about.
Well, you have a house, right? Or you're living under a roof here. Or
To be honest with you, I would feel like
you're not where you want to be. You want more.
But you're self-sufficient. You don't owe
There's-
anybody
okay.
anything, right?
I'm I'm not in any debt or
You're not in
anything.
jail.
Yeah.
I
You're
mean,
breathing.
You know.
This is the guy that's like, you're like living the worst life. You're like, hey, you still got your health. You know what I mean? Like you're that guy.
True.
Well, what else?
I
what else
know,
do you have?
I know. I brought it up before. There's that line of, okay, be driven, but also be humble. You know what I mean? Because there's a guy that's super driven, but he's never content.
Well,
and the guys that content, but he's not driven at all.
what,
you know what I mean?
what I think, where I should say, where I think people get confused is a lot of times when you talk to people, it's material things.
Right.
So that's what they are. They're material.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like Carl's saying, I mean, you have a happy family, you know, your kids talk to you, you have friends. I mean, what more could you want, you know?
Right.
You got us three here.
Yeah, really.
You must do something
That's
right.
success right there.
Remember as a kid laying in the fields dreaming about having you guys in a 2-bedroom apartment in Uptown Whittier just talking into a microphone.
Well, you have arrived. You have arrived.
Like life from here on out just sucks. You know what I mean? Like might as well live
Yeah,
life.
you're
to
a
the full.
downhill slide from here.
Dude,
Peaking.
I'm definitely sliding. That's for sure. So okay,
When did you start work? What was your first job?
first job, and I know once I say it, you're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, that's right," because I worked there for like 2.5 years.
I know.
Party City,
Brain go.
Party City, making $8 an hour
Okay.
Oddly enough, was also my first job.
I got him
He
a job
actually got me in there too.
for Halloween.
So how old were you guys?
Throwing my power around right there. I said, "I can get you a job for about 2 months."
Pulling rank.
Yeah, seasonal.
How old was I?
Yeah.
I was 16.
Good for you.
I got a
I,
job
was,
at
I
school.
think I was 17 at that time. I don't know. I might have been.
Was
But
16.
you're
it a year
still
later?
at Party City, right? Well,
Yeah, I still work there.
Selling booze at Party
Seasonal.
City.
To be honest,
Regional
we gotta wrap
manager.
It up. I gotta go over and stock.
Yeah. So, okay. Here's one thing that I wanted to bring up, and it wasn't even, I mean, it's related somewhat, but it was something that I kind of thought about is when I was, like, let's say 18, 19, maybe into 20, more 18, 19, like right out of high school.
Last year.
Bill, I love you. So, okay. I was I excelled at, like, hey, if I
you
said,
excelled at something?
Carl,
I'm listening.
that gray caterpillar growing on your upper lip looks worse than ever. No, I'm just
He
kidding.
excelled
It
at
looks-
talking. I
looks
know
good.
that. Jesus.
I used to be really shy, actually. And a little chunky kid, too.
Two tacos.
You
Yeah,
realize
two
we're in a room
tacos.
with black curtains, right? I'm just saying that.
I used to live in a field and dream about living in a room with black curtains. Okay. So I excelled. I really mean it, Carl. I excelled. What I really excelled at when I was trying to bring up is if I said I was going to be somewhere, I was going to be there on time. And I'm not talking about not even a job. It was just going to be like, hey, can you meet me at the school? Yeah, I'll be there at 5:45. I'm there at 5:30. Like every time. You know what I mean? And I just remember I was getting really frustrated because it was like friends except for Will. No, Will's a good
All
guy.
friends.
Like friends
Yeah.
and just everybody was like, man, I'm always lagging it. People are flaking. Like it was just like, man, this is super frustrating. To the point where you have that moment you're like, maybe I should just start flaking. Like it's not really paying off for me being like this. Part of it was I didn't have a whole lot going on. I was working a part-time job going to school that I didn't really like going to school. I never really did. But I was going to junior college, working part-time at Party City and Pizza Hut, just pulling rank. But as you get more things going on, I've gotten worse at that, right? I've been late to work a lot, even if it's 60 seconds. You know what I mean? Once I get there and I'm going, I'm great. But being 30 seconds, 60 seconds late.
Never admit that on camera, by the way, that you're late.
Right. I'm sending this podcast to your boss.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
It's fine. He was 10 minutes late today, and he loves me. So
Oh, great. Throw him under the bus now.
Yeah.
What's his name? So I get to call his boss.
Yeah. It'll be on,
where
it'll
obviously
be on your unemployment check. Don't worry.
it becomes more difficult to follow through on your promises and being that punctual and being on time and just I would say just having that character, right? The more you get busy, the more everything, blah, 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 it's hard to be there and have that character. And I used to always be so frustrated, right? So my question is, as you kind of ramp up from not having things to do, so like, okay, how am I trying to, there's a ratio of like how much things you, like how busy your life is and how kind of chaotic it is. And then the second part of that ratio is how good your word is and how, you know, you're on time, you're a good, like you can respect yourself. You stay true. You didn't, not even so much lie, but you're like, oh, I probably should have said something there. Or, you know what I mean? Or when you get out of your truck, you're like, I'll get that tomorrow. Like little stuff like that where it's like, no, I'm going to get it today. Just being driven, I guess is what you can call it. So there's that ratio of how chaotic your life gets with just life in general and then still being the man you want to be or person, ladies. When when you start to get more chaotic and life starts coming at you harder, when it, you know what I mean, and maybe that starts to fade a little bit, where's that ratio of when you need to say, okay, my life is too chaotic? Or is, like, how do you distinguish, okay, my life's too chaotic, or, okay, I need to just step up and be a man about this and start being on time and saying what I'm going to do? And not, because I feel like a lot of people say yes to everything, and then they always just flake half the time. You know what I mean? There's a lot of those people in this world.
Oh, yeah, just tell you what you want to hear.
They love the idea of going to hang out on Saturday, but they're not going to go hang out with you on Saturday. Like, they know that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of those kind of people. And so where's that line, you think? Obviously, this is just talk. You know, there is no answer.
There's an answer.
Carl,
There's
did you
always
learn
an
this? Did you learn this in your honors English class in high school?
Bingo.
Wood chop 3.
You always notice how the laziest guy on the job site is the fastest guy to clean up
Mm-hmm.
to go home.
Yep.
He starts off slow, works slower all day long. But, man, the minute you say, let's start cleaning up, man, that guy's speed racer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've always been the boss since like 24 on. I've always, ran jobs. And I used to tell the guys I worked with, if you can't get your ass to work on time, don't come. I don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, if you don't need your job that bad, I mean, this is what you guys are doing for a living. Okay. If you can't get there on time, I get every once in a while there's traffic. But when you're stuck in traffic every day, make an adjustment.
Right.
Leave a half hour early to miss the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
You can use that excuse once. The second time's tiring, and the third time you just go find another job.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't depend on you being there every day and being there on time, then that's screwing my day up
Right.
and everybody else around it. You know what I mean? Especially when you're on jobs that have deadlines. Bill knows.
Yeah.
We got to have this done. Oh, my car didn't start. I didn't have any money to get to work, but I was okay to go to the bar last night for 6 hours,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The lazy man works twice as hard. You're going to be there for 8 hours. You might as well work and bust your ass and learn, get something done. You'll feel way better about yourself when you go home.
Right.
The day will go by 10 times faster.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, you'll feel like accomplished, like you did something.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, dude, I just fucked off all day at work, and man, my boss didn't even notice. Trust me, we notice. We're not stupid. We
Right.
show up. Hey, how come nothing's done?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I had Steve and Will on the job. Will just came from bringing all of his beer samples over, and they're both hammered.
Each person took 2
Yeah.
shots, and now they can't fucking walk.
It's
Here's okay.
To add to what he's saying, when you're running the job, you set the pace. You lead by example. If you're the guy running the job and you show up late, what do you think the rest of the guys are going to do? They're going
Right.
to follow you. Well,
Right.
you got away with it, so I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to set the pace. And like he said, to me, if I had a guy that showed up late, okay, I give him a pass. Maybe something happened. I get it. But the next time, here, go sit in the corner here. You're off the clock for an hour till you get here, till the hour starts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I always make the joke, you hit the guy in the pocketbook. That's the only way he's going to pay attention to you.
Right.
You start docking him hours or whatever. And, I always tell guys this, I had 2 kids. I don't need any more kids on the job site to babysit. Either you come here to work or you don't. It doesn't matter to me. I got to get this done. Like Carl said, when you're a foreman, you have a plan and you're rolling along. You got to stay 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many days ahead of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody jams it up and you need them, it hurts. It's like,
Right.
They need to realize that.
Right.
and like it's cost as well.
Right.
So now I'm having to finish this job, and okay, now we're working overtime. So now I'm gonna have to pay everybody extra money because this guy didn't show up or this guy was late,
Right.
and they don't understand that. But I have a higher power to explain myself to, and
It's a trickle down effect.
Yeah,
For sure.
it's a trickle down effect, and people don't understand that even the smallest guy on the job, the cheapest guy on the job, is valuable.
Right.
You know what I mean? The truck drivers, everybody's valuable. The truck driver, if he's not there on time, he's slowing your day down. It's a trickle down effect.
You know what's crazy is it could be something as being 30 seconds late. The guy that's late, if he cares at all, it ruins your whole day because you're constantly going, "Fuck, man, I just," you know what I mean? Especially like you said, if a guy doesn't care, then he doesn't care. But if a guy's like, "Damn it, like I didn't, like I overslept again or whatever it is, and then you'll work. Like for me, I'll work hard, but the whole day I'm just pissed about that morning. You know what I mean? And so it ruins your whole day. And I've noticed that literally 5 minutes makes my whole day better. It's crazy. Another thing that's crazy is I was doing a review because I'm coming to the end of my apprenticeship, so I had to do a test. It was like a cumulative, right? So it was like a bunch of stuff from everything. So I was renewing all these not renewing, but I was reviewing all these workbooks that I had done over the last 5 years, right? And it was like orientation, like where you get the first stuff where it's like the history of your union and a bunch of stuff like that. And there was a question, and it was like, hey, why did you join the apprenticeship? Just something simple like that. And I read and this was when I was, when you're first starting, you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to read this and like they're really going to care. Like you're already in, you know what I mean? And so I read it, and I remember thinking I got every single thing I wanted out of it. But a thing that I didn't expect and what I've learned is, okay, I wanted more, right? And so everything I wrote and I wrote it totally like if it was like a job interview, because like I said, I thought they were going to read it. And it was something along the lines of, I'm really excited to get into the trade because I really respect people that can work with their hands, and they can make things happen with their hands, and craftsmanship and things like that. And I've always wanted, and I really respect that. And it was big because I was 21 and I was consumed by having a career job. I worked at Party City and Pizza Hut and done bullshit jobs where the whole time you're there, I was always fighting on those jobs to not say shit like, well, dude, this job's bullshit anyways, because the woman that's standing right there, like, that's her career. You know what I mean? So you just have to, like, not say that kind of stuff. But I was so ready to have a career job, air quotes, of, like, this is where I'm at. And this is the thing that I've learned is I was ready to have a job where every day I'm passionate and driven to better myself at that, because I don't want a job where you're not passionate about it. Because you go there for the whole entire day, pretty much. You commute there, commute back. It's like 12 hours, right? And so you do that, and if you're not passionate about it, it's literally just a timeout until you get to what you're passionate to. And when you, like you said, when you go there, even if a guy works really, really well, but he's not passionate about it, he's stunting his growth. You know what I mean? And you know exactly, like you guys are obviously, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you guys enjoy the job, and you quickly, especially Carl, quickly rose through the ranks. That doesn't just happen without passion. And I think what you're talking about is being driven and motivation. I think the root of that is passion, right? Because if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be motivated.
Well, it's not only work, that's just life.
Right, totally. So, yeah, that's one of the things I've learned about it is like I wanted to be able to work with my hands. I wanted the career job, and I've got it, and I've got money coming in, and I'm making the most I've ever made, and blah, 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 blah.
Well, you have to, because, I don't know what somebody's career is. Like, I got, 35 years I think I'm coming up on now.
Mm-hmm.
But however long you work, you have to. That's what gets you up every day through the good times and bad, to keep moving on and to provide for your family or whatever goal it is or whatever thing it is that you want to do. You have to have that. Otherwise, like I always joke with guys at work, I says, last time I looked at the dictionary, there wasn't a picture of the word work and some guy going thumbs up. Yeah, like this is it.
Right.
Nobody wants to work. It's a necessity, but you shouldn't.
We didn't Instagram our way to work.
Yeah.
We
Snapchat,
we
whatever.
Take pictures all day long.
Yeah.
We weren't FaceTiming our friends at work.
And that's another thing for you young guys. Just a little tip. We did all the shit you guys are doing. We just didn't take pictures of it, all right? We were a little bit smarter about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys got to understand, because there are some stupid people out there.
Yeah.
I have guys who like that worked for me, who were friends with my wife, because I have zero social media. I don't want any part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you want to know what I'm doing, you call me. Okay, and I don't even like the fact that I have to carry a phone all day.
Right.
But these guys would send pictures of them on the weekends smoking pot. They would send, pictures fucking off at work doing nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and Snapchat that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays social media, there's big companies, that's what they have, or people that go through for all day long and go figure out your past. Am I going to hire this guy, Steven? Oh, hold on a minute. Oh, he's got a podcast. well, let's listen to this podcast.
It's not doing very
Oh.
well.
Steven's late all the time, 1 minute or 5
Yeah.
minutes, you know?
And he ratted on his boss.
Yeah, then he just ratted on his boss. I sure as hell ain't hiring that guy. It's
Team
it's,
player.
it's a big deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Something you did as a joke, you know, when you were younger could come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously, you're seeing that with all of our politicians and
Mm-hmm.
everybody else.
Right.
You know, it's a different world now.
Yeah,
you
it
know,
is.
and I'm not saying it's better by any means.
Mm-hmm.
It's more advanced,
Right.
but
There's positives and negatives
Well,
to
it's,
everything.
I don't know about you guys, but when we were in high school, what was that book you had to read? George Orwell, 1984, Big Brother's Watching You?
Really?
He is.
Yeah.
It is. There's cameras everywhere. You can't do anything.
Right.
you know, and the bad part about it is, you know, like one dumb little decision can ruin everything you did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially when you
Yeah.
start working for some of these bigger companies that are out there.
Right.
You know, Mora Meadows of this world and all these big high dollar companies that
Right.
have, like, for your luck, you know, that's who you're working for, Morrow.
No, right now I'm working for a company called Neil, and to be honest with you, they're LA
Don't
division.
say anything bad about them.
Yeah, watch what you say. You're
be
on camera.
careful.
No, I'm saying their LA division kicks ass because I'm on it. That's why you gotta let me finish, Carl. All right,
All right, yeah, I was just trying to
a
save
man in your
job.
position when it's
Did you get that, Mr. Neil?
Right.
yeah, no, yeah,
I'll be sending him the link later.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
we're good. I know him personally.
yeah, it's all right.
No, but I mean, you guys got to understand that, and even the insurance companies and things like that, you know, they're looking at things. You know, what I mean, and you know, and the dumbest things could happen. One of our guys the other day, walked into the gang box, walked through the mud puddle, broke his ankle.
That happened.
Yeah, it happened.
Hmm.
You know, and so then, you know, we're sitting in a meeting having a conversation on how this guy broke his ankle, and they're like, you know, well, why didn't somebody grab the forklift and move the game box? You know, and it's like, well, you know, we walk through mud, you know, puddles all day long. You know, it's been raining like crazy. You know, a little tiny puddle, nobody thinks nothing.
Right,
There was a hole there, and he stepped in it wrong, broke his ankle. Dumb luck.
right.
You know, oh, how could have we been safer? Really? We're walking to the game box. I mean,
Yeah,
You know,
what are gonna do?
Overanalyzing it.
was he paying attention? Obviously not.
Mhm.
Was it unsafe to walk through a 3-inch puddle of water? Apparently so.
Yeah,
But in the same sentence, though, is, you know, it's a workman's comp claim,
right.
or, you know, we put him on light duty or whatever we had to do. But
It's
some-
time and energy
Yeah.
wasted.
for everybody.
Right.
You know, there was a panel of probably 12 or 15 of us sitting in a room making pretty decent money,
Mm-hmm.
talking about how one guy walking to the game box broke his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and same thing that goes up on our insurance, you know, and we're trying to keep that low so we can get these refinery jobs and all these high dollar jobs all over the place.
Right.
And like I say, that it's just a different world.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. I put out the Instagram a little bit earlier today. If anybody wanted to ask questions for you guys, and one of my buddies, Danny Gonzalez, asked a simple question of, was it worth it, right? So you got this whole career. I think we already know the answer, but just your decision going into this career and how you've kind of went about doing it, just was it worth it? You know what I mean? I think you guys are pretty successful yourselves.
We only had one question.
Wow.
It's growing. Okay, this podcast is growing, dude.
All 7 listeners, not 6 of the others
Yeah.
were bored or what?
6 people turned their fucking eyes, dude. Look, a lot of people saw it, but only one guy answered it, okay? Yeah, was it worth it?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
For us,
Yes.
it was.
Yes.
It's like,
Will,
I'd
what
do
do-
it again. Yeah.
What do you Well,
all 25 years over here. Yeah.
You back to Party City?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I'd work at Party City right
Hey,
now if I
I
was
still have a
16.
few contacts. This
Hey, you know what? If I needed to work at Party City, I'd work there too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not better than that.
Carl,
That
Carl, come on, guy. You don't have to start lying
I'm
this
just
late
saying,
into the show,
if,
dude.
that was the
if
time
I
when the
had
economy
to,
took a shit, and
hey,
then like there was
that's
like no one had any, like even just starter jobs. Everyone
Yeah.
was like
Yeah, the older people were dropping
older
back,
people were
taking
dropping
jobs
down,
too.
and then like the only reason I got that one was because of you. I put in like 100 applications.
That was like 2010.
2008.
Was
Well,
it?
By the time
I was like 16, so
it
junior
was
year.
2009, 2010. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was the bubble. Everybody.
Yeah.
I had people coming in with bachelor degrees, turning in applications at Party City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You do what you
Sign
have
of
to
the
do.
times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I had some people I know. I'm not gonna, rat on my sister. You know, they bought here, and they sold their house. They bought really low when the market was, oh, you work at Party City. Oh, you want a loan for $1 million? Of course we'll give you a loan. Why not?
Right.
They were giving anybody loans.
Right.
Oh, don't worry, we're gonna just load it all in the back. You know, your payment's gonna be $1,000 for the first 5 years, and then it's gonna be $20,000 a month for after that. You know, that's why these loans failed and stuff. These stupid ass loans that nobody should have ever gotten.
Yeah.
Right.
But they moved out when the market was at their peak, and they moved out to Lake Havasu, and now they're like, oh, I ain't taking a job for $15 an hour. My brother-in-law, and I'm like, well, $15 an hour is better than no dollars an hour. I mean,
Right.
and you sit around for 6 months, and all that money you think you had's gone. You know, you're playing, you're thinking you're high on the hogs. You got a couple $100,000 in the bank, or they didn't have that much, but you're spending $3, $4, $5 a month. Paying a house payment. You got kids. It goes fast.
Right.
You're sitting around
Paying
doing nothing.
the hookers to leave. Yep.
Yeah, and like I say, you're bringing in no dollars. You could have that job doing $15 an hour. At least you're bringing something in.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's not an offset.
Trying to stop the bleeding at least a little bit.
Right. And
Right.
and at that point, you look for the job making 18, and then you look for the job making 20, and
Work your way up.
you just keep working your ass off
Yeah.
till you can find the job that's going to get you to where you think you're happy.
Right.
Keep moving forward.
Right.
Right.
But you can't go out there with a mentality thinking I'm not working for this. Where you have to sometimes take whatever you can get.
Mm-hmm.
You know
No,
what I
I totally understand. Totally agree, Carl. In fact, I thrive on it. I really appreciate it.
To go back to Danny's question, was it worth it? First of all, Danny, you weren't supposed to say anything and ask that question. I thought we said that was another subject. We weren't going to talk about it, but anyway, since you brought it up, what was worth it? I mean, financially, I'm in a great place.
Right.
Looking back on it now, there were some things when the kids were younger that I missed out on because I made that decision to do what we had to do to keep moving forward. The problem, like especially when you have like kids, you never get that time back. The opportunity where you miss it or miss that whatever it was, that's the hardest part of it. But was it worth it for setting everything up and being in a place where I'm comfortable and I don't have to worry about things? Definitely. So,
For sure. Yeah.
A lot of people bust their ass on all these jobs, and we're union. We have great retirement. We have all that stuff. A lot of people don't get retirement.
Right.
They put in whatever they put in a year, and which, you know what? I mean, 20s. I don't need to put anything in. And 30s. I'll put a little in, and then your 40s, like, I really can't afford to put anything in. Kids are wanting to go to school, and next thing you know, you're in your 50s and you have no retirement.
Right.
I have bunch of people that way.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're all looking at me like, I'm like, dude, I have like great retirement. The union puts it in for me. I don't do it. If I had to do it on my own, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right.
I enjoy toys too much,
Right.
and hookers. But I mean, the construction world, a lot of people look down on it because you didn't go to school, you don't have that degree, but it pays bills.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Who's laughing now? That's all I got to say.
But if
Real
you're a
pat
hard
yourself on
worker,
the back.
and don't get me wrong, I mean, you have to be intelligent. I mean, and
Right.
And you can't just. I went to high school and I never have to go. And I tell my kids that all the time. I says, look, you're going back to school. Period. For something, whether it's a trade school, you're not just going to get out of school and go to work, and not eventually figure out that, guess what, I'm getting passed behind. I got a job. Yeah, I was making $12 an hour, $15 an hour. Oh, bitchin', I'm making $20 an hour, 25. Okay, guess what? That's the peak, dude. You're not going to make any more at this company than $25 an hour.
Right.
But you're like, well, my buddy Steven, he started off, I was making way more than him, and then he's blew right by me. And my son has no retirement, so he's working at a company that, he doesn't get retirement. It's a good company. He's doing good. And they've got a 401k now, but like I'm asking him, are you contributing into it? Oh, well, not yet, but it's you got to look at the big picture, guys.
Right.
You're going to get old like me.
The end game.
Right. Like I was the same way. I'm never getting old, and I'm still younger than most of you kids. Trust me. But at the end game is that, like I say, like Bill's saying, is, in 10 years, you know what? They're going to send me a check every single week to stay home and not do nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't have that luxury. You see these people working late into their 70s and stuff like that because they have to.
Right.
They drop dead. They don't even get a chance to.
Right.
Yeah, I feel there's a lot of even 65-year-old guys that are working in construction, and they're just journeymen. They don't, you know what I mean? They're not, look, they can't really carry anything, and you see them struggling, and you feel bad because you don't want to be the guy that's like, I can do that. You don't want to run circles around them, even though you can as a young buck. But you feel bad, you know what I mean? Because you see the writings on the wall. You're like, 65, I don't want to be pulling wire. You know what I mean? I do not want to be doing that.
Well,
Look,
it's
I'm still crunching the numbers on the Standing Still podcast retirement. It's not out yet. I'm going to contribute within the next couple months. Just need some form of income first. But
yeah.
Any form of income.
It's funny because as I get older, I look back at, like, because I see the younger guys now, they kind of live in the moment.
right.
And they're going out and doing things, and I'm thinking, maybe I should have done that. That looked like it would have been fun.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think, well, what are they going to do when they get older? What's going to happen? Or it's not going to be there for them like they think it is.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, I probably mortgaged the front part of my life, but I'm banking on the tail end of it. Is
Right.
what I'm looking at. I not to say, who's to say which way is right or wrong?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a lot of the guys now, they're happier. They do things and they're whatever. And I don't know about Carl, but I just seemed like when I was younger, I was intense. I was more pissed off all the time. It was go, 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 go driven,
Right.
And these guys now are more laid back. It's a little different. Which
There's a lack of, there was more, how do I put it? It was more, well, there was no political correctness, so that aggression was not frowned upon. You know what I mean? You still
it
get
was
it.
a standard, yeah.
Right.
In even like Bill's talking about is, he's banking on the latter part of his life, and trying to do all these fun things, and he's set up for it. And then there's speed bumps. We don't want to talk
Right.
about, kids having babies and, moving back home.
We don't want to talk about that.
Right.
Carl.
We don't want to talk about it, but I'm just. But
Yeah, let's go with speed bumps.
We'll call it a speed bump, We're like, what?
Yeah, things happen.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but like I say, you guys gotta enjoy life, and but you gotta prepare for it. When I was, we'd go to union meetings, and I was an apprentice, and first journeyman out, and they'd be talking about, oh, you're getting a 75-cent raise or $1 raise,
Right.
and then the old timers would be like, oh, hey, 65 on the pension, put in the pension. And the guys are like, no, we want all of it on the check.
Yeah.
And
Right.
like, and luckily, the older guys were like, look, I'm getting ready to retire. I need this money.
Right.
I'm going to need this money. And luckily, if it wasn't for those guys thinking, long term, because they were already older,
Yeah.
if you gave that vote to all the 25-year-olds in the room, every single one of them would go 100% on the check.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of, you'd be making $70 an hour
Right.
with no benefits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with no retirement, no
Right,
nothing. And then,
right.
Like you say, we'll get a check for, I don't know, when I retire, I don't know what it'd be, but $4,000 or $5,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
just sit home and do nothing,
Right. Sit
based
home.
on my merits that I had in the past,
Right.
and like I have a 401 that I contributed hourly myself because I want to live the lifestyle I lived my whole life.
Right.
So I put money away to help when I get older, that I don't have to be restricted to this.
Right.
I still want to be able to travel and do whatever I want, spoil my grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah, there's the benefit of you or yourself or others making mistakes, the benefit of that is being able to learn, right? And so I've seen that in the fact that, like, my parents retired early, dude. They're 53 and they're retired. I love the idea of not having to work. You know what I mean? That is
We all do.
right. However, I love the idea of not having. Should I say it? The joke is not having to work, but I love the idea of not having to go to work. The idea of being able to the freedom to choose what you want to do every day.
Right.
Yeah.
To not have to chase the dollar.
Choose to do what you want to do and not be told what you have to do.
Right. And just the fact
It's
that you have.
boring not working. Trust
See,
me.
I know. It's boring doing
Call
nothing.
your mom. She'll tell you. Hi,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah, right. She's actually pretty busy now, but
What?
there's my point was, like, my dad's shoulder and his back and everything like that, and he's only 53. You know what I mean? And that goes back to the guy that's 65 still working. You get to a point. My grandfather, who just passed away a few months ago, but his goal, he hated his job, but he worked it for 30 years. He's one of those guys that is that old school of, like, well, I hate it, but I'm going to go there, I'm going to work hard. You know what I mean? And he did for 30 years. His goal was to be retired for as long as he worked. He worked for 30 years, and about 2 months over, I think is what it was, or within a few weeks, he was retired a little bit more than he worked for his whole life, right? So I really respect that. And the point of all this is just to learn from their mistakes, right? Because I'm sure there's mistakes. That's one of the things I love hearing, the perspective that you guys bring, that just this podcast is a tool to build perspective, right? So before I say that we're done here, I've been trying to end all of these with the same question, and that is, what does standing still mean to you? That's what the name of the podcast, Carl. I know you don't listen. The name of the podcast is called Standing Still. For me, I called it that because it's kind of a moment where, I'm not worried about what's going on tomorrow, and I'm not worried about what happened yesterday, and I'm just going to, enjoying the moment and kind of sitting here laughing and getting some perspective from some guys that I really respect. So with that being said, that metaphor, that title, Standing Still, what does that mean to you? You know what I mean? Where's that moment that you're kind of, you're content? You know what I mean? That moment where you can kind of just be in the moment and love it,
When I'm 6 feet under.
6 feet under?
Or in a little vase on the mantle.
You'll be standing still definitely
Or
on that.
depends where my wife dumps me. Or if she even picks me up. Who knows? Who knows? It's
In the closet.
Still on the 50-50 here. You know?
Gray area.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Like me, I don't see myself stopping. I mean, I'll slow down. I like to work. I still want things, and there's certain things I want to do, and I don't see myself just getting to the point where I'm content just basically doing nothing. You know what I mean? I don't, and I'm sure it's gonna come a day, and that day gets there, I guess I'll know. But for now, I still have the mentality that I'm gonna, hang out with my kids and golf till I'm 80, and
See, like, that's what I'm
gonna try to hang out with my granddaughter and grandson if I get one, and I'm getting a couple grandkids, but I'm gonna live my life to the fullest, the best I can, make whatever choices I think I'm good with.
Right.
Okay, I don't care if you think it's good or not, but I'm just gonna live my life and have a good time, and roll on.
Fair enough. Bill.
Wow, that was deep, man. I don't know if I can follow that up.
Hey, can I go now?
What I meant,
I'm late for my bowling appointment.
Yeah, unlock the door so he can get out.
we're almost done.
Standing still.
What I want to be clear on real quick is I don't mean, like, what does doing nothing mean to you?
No.
Like, it's totally not.
The phrase I get, yeah.
Yeah.
To me is, I don't know how many you would have in your life, but standing still to me means, like, just standing back and realizing that, hey, I'm in a good place. And I think that's a great place to be in. And I hope, or I think, that I will have multiple times in that mode or whatever it is. But that's what it means to me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess reflecting back and looking, going, hey, I did the right thing. I'm comfortable with my life.
Right.
I got no worries. I don't owe anybody anything, and I can die in peace, I guess would be the easiest way to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what that means to me.
William.
I know I've said a lot this time around, but
You've been standing still this whole episode.
It's all right, man.
I'm trying to stick with the title, guys. All right. No, standing still to me, I think it's when, like, because I work 8 to 5, and then I come home and I hang out with my daughter Shay, and then like that couple minutes that you right before bed, you just kind of stand there and you're just like, did I do everything I could all day? And it's like, yeah, I might have fucked up a little bit at work or something like that. Or like with Shay, it's like I didn't spend as much time like paying full attention to her or anything like that. And you just think about it, and it's I think standing still is like a reflection, just kind of thinking about what you've done all day, and then even a little bit of pre-plan for the next day.
A reflection.
Where can I be better?
Right. Well, fellas.
One more thing.
No, that's all the time we have for today, Carl.
Delete.
Like that whole standing still thing it's all fine and dandy, but life goes by really fast. I mean, you're 25 now. You're gonna be 55 in a blink of an eye.
Yep.
Carl, that's the meanest thing you've ever said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it. I mean,
It happens.
I moved in. You were like 3 and 2 tacos, and now you're this big shot with a podcast. Awesome. 25. You're killing it.
You forgot the very successful part.
The
Before
Pizza
podcast.
Hut, the Party City. We
Yep.
got all that.
Yep.
But I mean, it goes by fast. So if you stand still, it's going to pass you by.
Yeah.
So I mean, live it to the fullest. Make good decisions.
Right.
Not all of them have to be good.
I think you're making this a little too literal,
But
Carl.
like I say,
Be somebody,
you-
Stephen.
right. Just remember, you're going to be the old guy going to the podcast talking to a bunch of kids eventually.
Right.
Yeah. It does
I'm going to be
happen.
the guy with like those radio antennas coming off my old truck pretty soon here. That's where I'm headed. No. But all right, well, I can't thank you guys enough. I know you guys have very busy schedules. I know you weren't satisfied with my Brita water to the fullest
No.
extent, to be honest with you. I could see it all over your face, Carl. Bill, thank you so much. Like I said, I know, and Will, your guys' schedules are insane as is mine. But I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you.
So-
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
just
awesome.
hoping the check clears.
Yeah. Can you lock the
I
door so
just-
we can go to the bathroom now?
You guys are getting paid for this? What the fuck?
Carl, shut up.
Anyways, all right, guys, we're out. Take
Thanks.
care.